Yeah, let's just roll in. So, yeah, because one of the things I've picked up on is like your link between music and food with all your dad's backgrounds and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I've picked up is, especially from coming here, is the music's all, like in all your restaurants is always fucking banging.
Good, that's a relief as well.
But like, so I went to Sorella the other day, and it was sort of like you're playing like amazing tunes, and I'd love to know how you think about selecting playlists, and because music's so entrenched into your being. Like, you know, I've been here on Sundays when it's raucous with the music.
Yeah.
How do you think about selecting playlists to go with food?
Well, that's hard. I mean, because I think food is culture as well. Do you
Right.
know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think food has an identity, and so does music. If you think of Latino, you know, that's the obvious one.
Sure.
But it's also, it depends on the actual restaurant itself. For instance, in Bottle and Rye, our place in Brixton, we've got a whopper big disco bowl there.
Yes.
And it's kind of inspired by the Parisian cafe culture and transitioning from daytime to evening. So as an example for that, then you kind of have something a little bit more chilled in the afternoon, but we've got like 4 playlists.
Yeah.
And I know this seems probably obvious to a lot of people in the industry, but for a lot of people that are not in the restaurant game, people assume it's just a playlist that just goes on, but you need a certain playlist for every time of the day.
Sure.
So you need a breakfast, you need a lunch, you need an afternoon. In fact, you need more than that. You need then aperitivo, early hour.
Yeah.
Then into sort of evening, and then late night.
Yeah.
So that's actually 6 or 7. And that's kind of what we have for Bottle and Rye. And then you go, okay, well, let's think about what is the kind of crowd we're going to get there, or what is it pitched at? And a lot of it's a lot younger crowd. It's sort of between sort of 20s, 30s, maybe late 30s. All young, very young.
yeah.
And again, you're thinking, okay, well, what are they going to go for? And you've got to judge, and you need to have then trust in whoever's managing that playlist, because I'm not there all the time.
Yeah.
To read the crowd and go, what do I play? And it's literally labeled 1 to 7, and it goes up in sort of beat and sound and intensity, up 1 to 7. And then we don't always stick the disco ball on either. So if you can see it's kicking off, it's good fun, straight on to like number 6 or 7 and stick that disco ball on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, because the thing is like I always try and pick that's the thing I haven't talked. I've interviewed with a lot of chefs, right?
Yeah.
A lot about the food, a lot about, you know, I always try and pick a new thing to talk about. And I think because with your old man's kind of, and we'll definitely get onto that. You know, everything he did in the music industry, and your mum is like, I think she was an Irish dancer and stuff. Like, it's so entrenched into what you're doing. In terms of how you think about, like, because you've got so many different restaurants and in so many almost completely different brands and categories. How do you think about music, like, in terms of bringing that, as you said, music is culture, to each individual restaurant? Do you know what I'm saying? To bring the food alive.
Well, it's funny because you mention my parents a lot. Like, I was literally brought up in theatres, you know, like it was like early days. My parents would bring me along to the theatre, and I'd have free reign of the Gaiety Theatre in Dublin and hanging out with all the dancers and stuff. And my dad was, say, the musical director. My mum would have been a choreographer, director, stage director. So they're creating shows. And then if you think about, like, the restaurant's the same thing. You know, the chefs are the musicians, and the front of house are the performers. Wow. And then you're setting a scene. And if you're setting a scene, what does that scene look like? Is it an Italian restaurant? Is it a French Bosi bistro? Is it a New York-inspired, like, big bar, brasserie? Do you know what I mean? And
Completely, yeah.
And then you go, okay, well, what are we looking for in that then? And then you're trying to create a vibe, and that is done through music. So you look at, like, we'll play like old school John Coltrane and Miles Davis in the mornings in Derby's, and it'll be a lot more chilled, and, you know, and then maybe a bit of Nick Drake and stuff. And then in the afternoon, it's like you're trying to create a bit more of, like, we do our happy hour oysters, and I kind of want maybe a little bit more like rock and roll, and, you know, where it's a bit more raucous and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So, and it's you're just thinking of the time of day, your surroundings, and you're trying to match that atmosphere at the same time.
Yeah. No, the way you've described that, and from your parents as in, like, chefs, musicians, setting the scene, the services, that's almost dancers, is beautiful. What are some of the other lessons you've taken from your parents that you apply to the way you run your whole sort of portfolio of restaurants?
So I have a great one. There was an argument back in the day in one of the shows that my parents produced. And it was between one of the singers and the musicians in the pit. The pit was the orchestra down below the stage. You used to call it the pit. And terrible name for it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You wouldn't like to be in a basement kitchen, and you wouldn't be going, get down to the pit.
Get down to the fucking pit, yeah.
But that's what it was and is. So
Is
anyway,
it still called the pit?
It's still called the pit,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Yeah. That needs to rebrand that.
Yeah, I know, but it's just a thing. I don't know. It's like it's not even. It doesn't seem derogatory, whereas I think it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was an argument going on. So I heard this story about the musicians hated the singer. You know, she's a bit of a diva. So the musicians deliberately speeded up the tempo to make her mess up her act.
Wow.
And it was like they had an argument internally. So who's suffering at the end of the day? The customers. So even if there's an internal argument between the performers and the musicians, that's their beef, but then it has a negative impact on the audience.
Yeah.
And this always stuck with me. And so when, you know, as I worked in many, many kitchens before I did my own thing, I felt that if you're in the pit, or if you don't see what's going on in the dining room, then there's a communication breakdown, and that's where this kind of animosity can develop and this kind of mistrust can develop between the chef and the front of house. That's one side of it. But that's not always the case, because sometimes buildings are built that way. You can't get around that. But the relationship is so important between front of house and back of house that you don't want that mistrust, because what happens is, as an example on the restaurant side of it, is, you know, you get slammed, a load of customers arrive all at once, waiters, waitresses, managers, they're all taking a whole lot of orders because they want to make the customers happy. The kitchen gets slammed with checks. And what I've seen multiple times is the kitchen will go, oh, we've been slammed, let's fuck them. Let's get all these orders out and fuck them back. So who's losing out there is the customer.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing, you know, and that's why I have, as much as I can, is an open kitchen and build on the relationship between the front of house and back of house. Because when I was in the dairy, our very first restaurant, it was like that. The way the chefs were serving a lot of the dishes, and straight from the get-go, when we saw the customers came in, we were like, we need to help front of house. We need to kind of get them
right, in the
set.
dairy, you had it open, because that was one
Completely
the only
open.
restaurant of yours I probably haven't been to.
And it was a straight run through. We had a window even into the bar.
Yeah.
So there was this communication was incredible, because you were right there on the floor. You were dealing directly with the waiters, and you could see the guests coming down. So we would even help. We said, look, we need to help them. We'll drop all the snacks down. Let's help clear table 34 or whatever. And the chefs would personally go out and clear the tables. And so it just that culture started of like, if there's an issue that we're having, let's just get it sorted. The customers is the most important. And then if there's niggles that we need to sort out, we'll do it after.
Also, I suppose like having the open kitchen as well is like the chefs or the pit can see literally the audience or the customer.
Exactly.
And there's almost sort of like a pride thing. I hadn't thought of it like that. Because I suppose before you said literally in some buildings, if there's a fucking wall there, there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do. Like, to be honest, in Sorella, we have a basement kitchen there. It's a tiny set of stairs that go down to the kitchen. But what's great is there's still the connection between the kitchen and the dining room, because Ross, who runs the kitchen there, we started off, he came through the dairy, and then a lot of the dairy team launched that restaurant. So that culture was already there, that the chefs would run up the stairs and help drop the dishes up into the dining room. So there's still that connection.
Yeah. Were there any examples of like when that link, you know, you said like, right, the chefs have said, right, we're going to fuck them. Like in your experience, all the different restaurants you've worked at, where that's happened, and like what are some of the 1 to 2 principles you've learned about how to solve that? I appreciate like when there's a load of customers come in, do you know what I mean?
It is what it is. You just got to deal with it. I mean, you can say, well, there's 2 things. You know, if it's dealing with when all the customers come at once, that could be a reservations issue. It could be that if there's certain pinch points that you know that's going to happen, then you just need to ramp up staff accordingly, or look at your menu, look at your offering. Do you know what I mean? Because the last thing you want to do from a business perspective is turn away guests. So if you're going down and you're not fulfilling the demands of the clientele, then you need to look at what you're doing. You need to look at what you're serving. You need to look at how you're serving it, and you need to look at how you're staffing it. And it's a balancing act. Do you know what I mean? So and then from a relationship perspective, the biggest issue is communication. And I think, and I see it all the time, from the smallest little places to the biggest places like this, where if you don't have regular meetings, if you don't do briefings, and if you don't talk to each other, you're not aware of what's going on. You get upset with the other side because you don't know what's going on, and then this mistrust happens, and then you don't get it off your chest about, look, what happened yesterday, that wasn't cool. You did this or you didn't. We didn't talk about this. I wasn't aware of this group that was booked in and I didn't know about it. If you don't even talk about it, then it just stays inside. It festers. And nothing worse.
Yeah, that's cancerous, isn't it? It's like an organisation. As soon as that starts to happen, any other principles you've learned from your parents? I love the whole pit thing. I think that's beautiful.
I guess, to be honest, they had a great love of life, great sense of adventure. You know, they traveled all the time. They were open to sort of different shows, different things that they did, you know, from, I guess, business as well, to be honest. Like, you know, they took some big risks. They took on, you know, whole theatres to put on shows, and it was on them.
Yeah.
And that's a risk, you know, like, and I think restaurant business is a risky game. Do you know what I mean? I think you are, again, it's like, this is a big theatre and I took it on. Do you know what I mean? And I think most likely I was inspired by my parents making that leap and doing it with people. Another thing, actually, now that I'm just kind of talking about it, is probably people as well. And this is probably subconscious now, as I didn't even think of it before, but my dad had a very good, more so my dad than my mom, I think, had incredible relationships, long-lasting relationships with people in the industry.
Right. Okay.
And a lot of people trusted him. A lot of people looked up to him. And I think through that, he, maybe in the down times, he got loads of gigs and vice versa because he helped a lot of other people.
Sure.
I think a lot of people would have helped him. And I think he also had an understanding. He was quite a humble guy, although he was quite famous, and people would stop him in the street, even in his 70s and stuff.
Wow.
And he was extremely humble. Do you know what I mean? I named this whole place after him. He would have been really embarrassed. He would have tried to stop me doing that. You know? And I think that his career was built on him understanding great talent as well. Yeah. You know, he put together the best bands through the best musicians because of his relationships with people.
Yes, and that's what you're trying to do now with your different restaurants, I suppose.
Well, subconsciously I did it. I never would have done another restaurant. When I did the dairy, I was like, wow, this is my dream. I've never wanted to do more than one. It wasn't like, I didn't set out and go, I'm going to open one and then I'm going to do a whole string of them. That never, ever, ever the case.
Really?
Honestly, I was like, I realized that maybe there was something in that I was good with people, and then all of a sudden I got approached by landlords, because it's very hard when you're no matter how shit hot your CV is or who you've worked with, unless you've proven yourself in real estate and you've launched a concept that's proven and you've done something, landlords won't look at you. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to get on that ladder for the first time. So once I'd proven it in the dairy, then all of a sudden it just opened up a lot of.
So what did you do from dairy? You went to, wasn't it the Manor? Then it was
Manor,
Sorella.
yeah.
So talk me through that process, because what I find interesting is the fact that you opened, and we'll explore this, like how all most of your restaurants are in sort of South London, is how you open not next door, it's a bit further down the road, but like what's the sort of thought process in going like just down the road versus say East London versus say North London? Do you know what I mean? Like what's the...
I guess especially it was the first thing. First of all, I was approached by a landlord. There was a long-standing Spanish restaurant there called El Rinco de Cognac, something like that.
Yeah.
It was there for like 20 years. Yeah. Anyway, they're a hard-working family, family-run business, Spanish restaurant, and they were looking to sell, but they didn't want to put it out in the open market. They were tired. They wanted to pass it on to people with a good integrity and seemed hardworking. So we got approached, and we built up a bit of I had a lot of respect for them and what they'd done. Yeah. And they approached me and said, "Would you take on the restaurant? We admire your hard work. We can see you're a husband and wife team." And I was thinking, okay, this would be a good sort of second restaurant because around the corner, it's we could literally manage it from here.
Okay, yeah.
I did feel that Clapham could still do with another good restaurant that was kind of food focused and hospitality focused, and then getting back to your point, simply I had an incredible team that were itching, biting at the bit to sort of do something else. And I knew, like Dean, who I put in that position and became, he was like my number 2 in the dairy, and I wouldn't have been the success that it was without him. And then I had Richie, I had a core team in there that, like, it really made me sort of think, wow, these are the people that helped me kind of make this business.
Yes.
So there's an opportunity for maybe Dean to get in and open a restaurant, and then we grew organically like that.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas I would never have taken that leap. And if I didn't do that, I guess Dean probably would have moved on, where this is an opportunity to grow.
Because that's what I was asking you about your parents, and you said it's your old man always looking out for people, or like always bringing the new talent in, or always keeping people sweet, and now applying that to your restaurant businesses. That's fascinating.
But it was organically done.
Organically,
it wasn't. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, I think it's just because you got good relations with people, then I think opportunities come along, then at least people trust you, and then things can happen. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it's a deliberate sort of tactile.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Just like
I'm just being nice because I'm going to just, for
have it on an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. Have an Excel spreadsheet. I've been sound to him. Right. Yeah. We fucking go. Here's the next restaurant, mate. Wheel you out. Yeah. No. It's so interesting. And then because even like that road where Sorella is now.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting road, right? Because it's like, you're off the beaten track.
Yeah.
It's like by a KFC, well, not by a KFC, but it's like...
It is, yeah.
It is by a KFC. And then you've got like the gym, the leisure centre thing there.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting road in terms of... But I was there the other night. It's fucking rammed. Like, how did you get people in? Like, what was the pull?
Basically, I'm based on the success of dairy. You know what I mean?
That was it,
honestly, like, it wouldn't mean... And to be quite honest, Faye Maschler put us on the map dramatically. So, like, and that was one of the biggest risks we took. We borrowed money. For the first time, we borrowed kind of a decent wedge. We put money in from the dairy, my wife and I.
Yeah.
And as in from money that we'd kind of saved.
Yeah.
Luckily, we didn't sort of, we took some money out of the dairy and we saved it. We didn't sort of blow it, you know what I mean? Whereas we could have easily kind of just gone a bit nuts. And we saved it and then reinvested it in a good chunk of it into the Manor at the time. And then borrowed some money from family, and it was way more expensive fit out than initially the dairy, and much higher risk. Like, if you look at what the positioning of where the dairy was, like, you could have opened anything there and you could have actually made it work as long as it was half decent. Right facing the common, the tube station is just there. It's got that amazing thoroughfare. But as we just spoke about, that Manor Street, this doesn't have that.
Yeah.
So when we launched, first of all, the initial press release, and we had a really strong following on our newsletter. So that filled the first 2 weeks for our soft launch. Then 5 days afterwards, and I'd gone, like, I intended initially to do a really simple little bistro, but because Dean was so talented and the team we put in there were just amazing, we ended up doing something way more complicated. In fact, it was challenging the dairy in terms of kind of...
How was it more complex?
Well, it was more complex, as I wanted to do a simpler version of the dairy and a lot more like a French bistro or something.
Sure.
And because of Dean's talent and his drive and what he wanted to do, when we got in there, like, we changed everything about a week before. He wanted to do tasting. He wanted to be doing all this mad table service and fermenting anything that moved. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sick.
So all of a sudden, and then we built this ice cream bar where we had Kira, who was like a legendary pastry chef. In fact, Gill said it was the best pastry in London at the time. And we were doing all this liquid nitrogen at the table. Honestly, it was way...
So this is when it was the Manor?
This was when it was at the Manor.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, when I wanted to do a simple bistro, which probably could have operated with like 3-4 chefs in the kitchen and whatever, same for the house, suddenly we had 8 chefs in the kitchen and, probably 9 for the house, really pushing the level of cocktails and tasting menus and everything. And I remember I was working on the pastry with Kira at the time, and I remember just looking at the dining room and it was empty. After our 2 weeks off lunch, the whole place was empty. Like 3-4 people in for dinner on a Tuesday night. I was just like, I had this sick feeling. I was like, what have I done? I've fucked this.
What regard? Like what?
It was empty because the restaurant was empty. I thought I'd gone too complicated.
Yeah.
And we are down a side street. We are not the dairy. And I just, all of these thoughts going through my mind of like, I've messed this up. And then a Faye Maschler review came out in the Evening Standard the next day, giving us incredible review. And boom.
Liftoff.
Total liftoff.
Wow.
And what happens when something like that happens is it just spreads the word, because we had our own sort of following from the dairy, but then it just goes much wider when you get a review like that. And then that brings loads of people into the restaurant. So then what you have to do, you have to nail it then, because then it grows organically. Then it's the most powerful, which is word of mouth.
Yeah.
So you get that first review in, and then you got to nail that. When you get in, like a huge amount of people in, then it's this kind of Ponzi scheme or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's when it suddenly grows.
Yes.
And that's that critical moment. And that's what happened. And then all of a sudden, we were filled for 2 years on the back of that. And then we had Gill. Then we got...
so how long's that been? You've had that
was 11
spot?
years ago.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
That's mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember driving up. Like, I was living in Surrey during COVID, but that was fuck all to do. Like, so you guys were doing the pasta things. You know, like so you could buy the ragu. So I was like, oh, well, nothing else. So I was just drive up, get that. And it was like giving some sort of like last tether to some sort of hospitality.
Yeah.
But even now, like, I think you've still got those things on the floor, you know, like the social distancing things.
Oh God.
Yeah. But it reminded me the other day of that. I was like, wow. But that survived all of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look, during so what we did was, can we cut this for 2 seconds?
Yeah.
Is that okay? I was gonna check, because that bloody thing might be live now.
No, yeah. You go for it. Yeah. What were we talking about? We
were talking about probably the longevity of Sorella and what happened.
How it's been going for so long. So it's been sort of 10 years. Like, what are some of the lessons you've taken? Like, what's the art of... Because as you say, restaurants can come and go. You can be hype 1 minute, but to have longevity for that long, there's a real art to that, and I'd love to know what you've learned.
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's any sort of... I don't think there's any sort of exact sort of, you know, how-to on it. I think in my experience with this particular site was that we started off as the Manor. We absolutely smashed it for about 4 years. Then we started to see trade dip off a little bit. This is pre-COVID now. Yeah. We started to see trade dip off a little bit. I think our food was competing with the dairy, and that was a positive and a negative at the same time. Mm-hmm. I think the restaurant became a destination restaurant, and tick it off, and you might go maybe once every 6 months, as opposed to a local neighborhood bistro, right?
Right, with you.
Whereas the dairy was seemed to be consistent. It was still a kind of destination place, but it was still people were coming in regularly all the time. And even if there wasn't a huge pre-book, we would still fill it based on the location. So what I felt was that we needed to change, and we took a really sort of drastic sort of call to do it. And I have to say, like, massive kudos and credit to Dean, who was running it as the Manor, and it was very much his restaurant. Do you know what I mean? I helped launch it, and then I stepped away, and I became more restaurateur, and he was chef. Yeah, you know, and more. Yeah. So I said, look, we have to do something, because the trade is dipping off here. What do we do? And I said, look, I think we need a nice point of difference. We need to look around the area. I've got experience in Italy. At this time, there wasn't a huge amount of like food-focused, quality, fresh pasta restaurants. You had Trullo, obviously way over in northwest London, but especially around our area, there wasn't really much at all. And I thought, right, there's a gap in the market here. There's a real story about me, because I used to work in Don Alfonso's in Napoli and part of my training. And so we can link that. And I spoke to Dean. We were actually on our way to Wilderness. I said, look, we need to do something. We need to do something drastic.
How badly was it dipping off at this point? Was it like off going car crash dipping, or was
not
it just...
car crash, but you could see that it was dipping off.
And dairy was still cash.
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. Yeah.
And I just said, we need to do something. And I think, you know, I just feel there's a change in the landscape of the area. Clapham is what it is. You know, I don't think there's room for two kind of dairy-esque sort of places. And based on the location, we need to do something that's a lot more neighborhood and a lot more casual, lower our price points and do something still with integrity and what we want to do. So and Dean at the time hated pasta. Do you know what I mean? He had no experience in Italy. Yeah. So we sent him over to Italy, sent him to the region where I used to work. He did some stages around the area, went there for a week and fell in love with the place. Wow. And then came back and went, right, let's do it. And got completely behind it. Now, I don't know any chefs that would have done that based on if the restaurant was all about them to suddenly go, okay, admit that, look, this in this current sort of identity, it's not really working. I'm going to completely transform it. Especially when he didn't have any sort of relationship with Italian cooking at the time. The part that really sold him was it's such a produce-led type of cooking, Italian cooking, and he's fanatical about produce and vegetables and things like that. So we got him over the line with the pasta. Yeah. and then we relaunched it for 20k less, I think it was. Completely did a refurb.
20k less as in? As
in we 20k investment back into the business.
Okay, short with you, yeah.
Flipped it. Like even Sorella, Dan joins, who was involved, still is involved in that side of the business. Did the branding, just kind of found Sorella online or whatever like that. And we just, we got that for probably 20 quid. And then we just smartened up the place, repainted it, had a relaunch and launched Sorella. And now that's kind of thriving and it's consistent. And Ross and Mary now run it. Dean got us a bib gourmand in year one, and do you know what I mean? It was.
Is he still there, Dean?
No, Dean is actually moved to Glasgow and opened up an Italian restaurant called Celentano's.
Oh wow, amazing! Yeah.
So there you go.
The man who fucking hated pasta. That's so funny, man. Because a couple of things. I think if you want to do anything, you've got to reinvent. Like my favourite bands of all time, Beatles. Fucking love the Beatles.
Yeah, there you go.
Like if you look at their 9 years of albums.
Yeah.
Same with David Bowie. Constantly, he goes to Ziggy Stardust. He just constantly reinventing. But that is not easy, right?
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere you said about, and we'll get on to Raymond Blanc, about how as soon as you thought something was going good or like something was perfect, he would be like, right, let's change it.
Yeah.
Like that is fucking hard. Like speak to that. I understand with moving from the Manor to Sorella, like if the customers are dipping, you have to have this radical reinvention, right? Yeah. But when things are going good and things are going like perfect, like what's the hardest thing about reinventing when you're kind of at the top of your game? But if you don't, I genuinely believe if you don't do that, you become past, you become stale, you stop moving, you dwindle. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's that great reference to music again, and it couldn't be, it's so true. It's like the moment you think you're the greatest band in the world, then you've got it, and you just sit back and take your royalties, and you're not gigging anymore. Yeah. You see them all back gigging now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, you have to. And look, there's some great acts out there now who, and I'm going back to restaurants now, like, but then, okay, I was about to say St. John, they're an example of people who are at their game. They don't have to do anything different. But actually, look at what they do that's different. They're constantly doing these incredible collaborations with people. They're still doing incredible cooking in LA or doing lunches in New York or they're literally on fashion strips. Do you know what I mean? Creating clothing brands. So that's changed. That's constantly being innovative, you know? You mentioned Raymond Blanc, and that's it. Like every time I speak to him or, and all through the years in the long relationship we've had over the years, he's always saying, yes, I'm changing it again. I'm going to make the restaurant bigger. I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to redo the rooms. I'm building an orchard. I'm doing this. And like that with in the dairy as well. Like I remember sort of 3-4 years in, we were like out the door. We were getting up super high ranks in at restaurant awards, blah, 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 good food guide, all these kind of things. And I would go, right, well, what do we need to do next? And that's when we launched Bloodshot Supper Club. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, the moment you think you're there and you don't need to do anything else differently, I think you're fucked, you know? And I said that in briefings. We used to have this great, we still do it as much as we can, but I remember in the dairy, we'd have this kind of front of house, back of house meeting. And it was always this thing of like, well, what can we do better this week? You know, what can we change? What is the focus this week? Yeah. And there was some noise around the table going, Robin, we're full every night. Like, can we not just be sort of content? And I almost fucking snapped. Do you know what I mean? I was like, no, you're completely wrong. Yes. You know, the moment there's always something we can do better. There's always a step of service we can do better. There's always something more we can do that was going to create an special experience for a guest that's coming into the door. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's whether it's a embarrassing fucking sparkler that goes down to the table, or if it's looking more into your reservations line to kind of get a bit more info on the guests when they're coming in, so that we can make it a bit more familiar, a bit more special, to the playlist, to events. I mean, I drive this business a lot in Derby's a lot through event, and that could be through music, it could be through food, it could be through, and to be quite honest, as we all know right now, a lot of it's through social media now. We have to be constantly creating something new and fresh to kind of keep us on the radar.
Yeah.
Because we're not in Soho. We're not in Shoreditch. We're not, do you know what I mean? We're in still, relatively speaking, kind of a new industrial estate. You know what I mean? So there has to be a draw. And there's so many great spaces out there that unless you keep shouting, there's no reason to come here. Because there's always something new, or there's always this, you know.
Yeah, no, the reinvention thing, and on the St. John thing, I think I read it somewhere. I think it's a quote by, is it Trevor, which is, or I read it on like one of the newsletters or something, which is like always, St. John always, yet never the same. And I fucking love that. It's like,
that's great.
It's like, it's always is the St. John brand through and through, but they're constantly reinventing. Has there ever been like a reinvention where it hasn't gone right or gone wrong?
I think yes, so definitely for like food. You know, sometimes when you mess with a dish that's a classic, that's part of your DNA, and then you change something. It's like the salted caramel that we put on the dairy, and it was like, it was phenomenal. I remember like Michelle Reed Jr. quite vocally said he'd run full speed across the common to have it. Do you know what I mean? I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And like for me, that was like perfection. It was salty, sweet. It was this kind of malty caramel, super savory, a little bit of bitterness. And, you know, I remember like we brought elements of it here, and by bringing elements of something that was great there, you know, we fucked it. You know what I mean?
Really?
And it's like, why not? Why chefs are so bad at that. Like they get bored, so they change things that, and especially when you're messing with a classic like that, if you make something just for sake of change because you're bored of it, and then you do, it's not as good as the interpretation before. What's the point? You know what I mean? It should only change if you're going to be honestly making it better, and you really have to make sure it's better. Just because, and sometimes change, and you know, adaptation can feel better, but it's short-lived. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be really careful about that.
Yeah. It's almost, it's a tension, isn't it? It's like you don't want to stay static and still. But if you reinvent for the fucking sake of reinventing, then you're losing your kind of your essence.
And that you know, there's one opportunity. You know, guests are brutal like that. You know what I mean? They'll come in, and you know, if there's classics like the beef and bone marrow pie here, now the full caramel here. The truffle bar and bacon on toast, you know, all these different dishes that kind of are on for the majority of the time for the year, that if they come in and they have those classics and they're off and they're not quite right, or someone's changed them for the sake of change, they might come back once more, but that's it.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I really do. It's like there's so much.
I had I think it was like last summer, they did like a Guinness chocolate pudding thing here.
Yeah.
That was fucking outrageous. Like, I still remember that. I think that's probably one of my favourite desserts of all time.
Okay, awesome.
It was like, you know, like the crispy, like, tweel thing, I think it was. Mate, that was
Well, this is actually a good... after the salt caramel, that's what happened.
Right.
The Guinness got interpreted. It got sort of brought it onto that dish, the Guinness ice cream. So that has actually worked. That's elevated it now.
Okay. We went full circle there.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. That's hilarious. Yeah. So what, in terms of like music, like as like an inspiration, what sort of bands would you, or artists would you sort of model yourself on and your restaurant groups on?
Oh, that's really hard. That is really hard. God, that is one of the toughest questions. I mean, I'd love to say the Beatles. I'll take the Beatles.
You like the Beatles? Yeah. No, but
I love the Beatles, but again, because you mentioned change. Do you know what I mean? You start at one time, you're an era, and I'd like, again, do you know what? I think the Beatles is a great one because I've always thought, I had this back in the dairy, and I feel about it here, and I think that like the Beatles were not technically the greatest band in the world, but could quite easily be the most loved.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think as I do in my, I hope I do, kind of neighborhood restaurants. I love being part of a community. I build a great relationships with guests that come here all the time. They're now great friends. And for me, I think I've done it right when I've become the most loved restaurant. It doesn't have to be technically the best. Do you know what I mean? So if we might, I don't know, there could be something that might go wrong, but as long as the guest leaves feeling loved, and that they love this restaurant more than any other restaurant, and we feel part of their DNA and where, do you know what I mean? And vice versa.
Yeah.
To be the most loved restaurant is what I want to be.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't need to be like 10 out of 10 a good food guide and like.
What do you think about
fucking
Michelin
exact.
stars? Is that something that, because you've
Look-
worked at Le Mans, like, what does
Huge respect for Michelin. You know what I mean? And, you know, not to say never, I still would always love to have a star of my own.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I always felt that. I thought we were so close. I never set out to get a star. When I ventured out of my own restaurants, like when we opened the dairy, my goal was to get a Bib Gourmand because I wanted to be known as great food at great value.
Sure.
But when we launched and we kept on pushing the boundaries and we grew our team, the food just kept getting better and better and better. And then we had all of these incredible chefs from all over the world, from René Redzepi, Gordon Ramsay, you know, Claude coming in every other week, Jason Arden. We had all of these chefs coming in all the time, and they all said, "You're going to get a star."
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, we wanted it,
Yes.
and it became like a bit of a kind of a real kind of want and need for it. You know what I mean? Like almost bordering unhealthy, and
When you say almost bordering on unhealthy, like, did it take away from the very thing you just said about the Beatles, about being loved? Did it kind of like you became too maniacally obsessed with that?
no,
or
it just upset us that when the guide came around, everyone was saying you're going to get it, and there
fuck,
was
yeah.
and we were getting one of these sort of, you know, publications saying our tips for getting the stars this year, and we would always be in it, blah blah blah. So then all the team would be waiting, going, it's going to be our year. So for about a month before and a month after, there's this huge horrible anxiety around
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Then you get back into the flow of things, and then you wait for another 8 months or whatever for it to all happen
Yeah.
again. So it's healthy and unhealthy at the same time, and I huge respect for it. And honestly, like, you know, I think I'd love to do something, and I have this kind of weird philosophy. Like I have a long-term goal that I'm never going to retire. I love cooking. I love being in restaurants, and I think it keeps me alive.
Sure.
You know, I love also fitness and walking and all that kind of stuff. But I think I have this dream ever since I worked in Italy to have a place near the coast somewhere where it's like a retirement plan that I'm going to cook maybe seasonally.
Sick.
Ideally over the summer, and I'm predominantly seafood but vegetable focused. And I have this thing that it's probably where I might get a star. Because I just think that I'm just going to be so content to go to own the building, just cook from the heart, and it's going to be small, it's going to be contained. And I just think maybe after all my experience over the years, hopefully that'll be the place. Do you know what I mean? And maybe because I won't really care anymore. And it happens
That'll be it. Yeah, when you least care about things, it's so true. But when you don't care, it comes.
Yeah.
There's definitely a truism in that.
Yeah.
How does food and cooking? You said so, like almost like inextricably intertwined into you. Like, how does cooking help you express things you can't often express through words?
Oh my God, that's an easy answer actually, because geez, I'm gonna get teary about this now, but years ago, my mother-in-law died really young. She was only 49, like all of a sudden, a real tragic death.
Wow, sorry.
And we were working together, my wife and I, for Raymond, and anyway, we suddenly rushed home, and I don't think I have actually, no, and I've been I've been really closest to sort of big deaths, you know, very early on when I was quite young. And you're a bit kind of lost at what to do. When something like that happens and you're immediately around it and you're kind of like in the inner circle of, let's say, the people who are grieving. The thing that I did was just cook. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and without saying a word, just the simple act of cooking for someone. You don't have to speak, you don't have to learn, you don't even have to know the language, but I just got my head down. I didn't know what else to do. And because I'm a cook, that's all I could think of to do. I was like, right, I'm just keeping busy. But it's a gesture.
Like, food and cooking is a form of love that doesn't need a language.
That's it.
You can be in any culture in a different language. If you're cooking something, it's mad. So I interviewed Santi at Cole, you know, in Marylebone, the restaurant.
Yeah,
Cole.
yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, absolute don. But he was basically saying he had a mad story whereby he, I think he lost his dad, his mum, and his grandfather in the same fucking month.
Wow.
Which was like super intense. And he basically said the only way I could sort of grieve was he went and worked in the kitchen. He was like 15.
Okay, yeah.
And he said one, like literally like being in Mexico City, like not having like he could actually feed his family. One. But two, it was like a way to like communicate without having to say anything.
Yeah.
And I think it's so true what you've said there, Robin, about that. It's like it's like food's like a love without any it doesn't need a language around it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I get into cooking to try to get girls as well.
Yeah. Well, you did. Let's talk about when you met Sarah then, because she was front of house.
Yeah.
You're at the Manoir. Like, talk to me about that whirlwind of
Well, actually,
romance.
I wasn't at the Manor just yet. I was actually cooking in Italy at the time in Don Alfonso's.
Right.
And what did I do? I had basically, it was a seasonal restaurant, so they were closed for February, January. So you get through Christmas, New Year's there, and then it was shut for January, February. So I would go back to Dublin, and Sarah was working in a restaurant that I used to cook in, and I had a great relationship. It was a kind of a nice local restaurant called Brazil Namara at the time, seafood restaurant in my hometowns in Leary in the south coast of Dublin. And I used to get invited back to the staff parties were always in January. So I would always get the invite, even though I hadn't worked there for years, you know? Because a lot of the crew were still working there. It was like a nice restaurant. A bit like getting invited to a St. John party. This place was around for a long time.
Sure,
you know?
with you. Yeah.
And so I got the invite and met Sarah. She was actually due to have an exam the next day, so she shouldn't have been there. And I also didn't have a phone, and I was staying in a friend's house, Paul McNerney's, and I didn't have a phone at the time. And God knows why, but the landline rang, and I picked it up, and it was one of the girls that was working in the restaurant called Claire, who was saying, "You come to the staff party." So it was just strange that neither of us should have been there. But when we both went on this lunch, we sat beside each other, had the crack, and really got on. That night kissed. And it was like a real fast romance. You know, we met in Dublin, then a few days later had an incredible date that was like off the charts, great fun. And
what did you do on the date?
I probably can't say. It was a fun one. It was like I was trying to be all cool and being romantic, and saying, like, "Do you want to go to the theater?" Blah, blah, blah. And she was like, "No, we're going party and I've rented a hotel room." Blah, blah. So it was straight in. I was like, "Well, okay, you know,
let's fucking go, baby."
So we stayed in this place called Handles, and it was like everything was just like really fast, you know, but in a good way, because sometimes that can happen as well. If you take sort of time for granted, and you know, and I'm talking about not just in relationship, but in anything. Yeah. If you take time for granted, things can slip by, and this certainly didn't, because then 2 days later, I'm going to Spain because my parents are living in Spain. Yeah. So I'm going there for like a month before I go back to Italy.
Sorry, how long ago how many years ago?
Oh my God, we're talking. So we're probably married 14 years. We were talking nearly 20 years ago.
Okay, sweet, yeah.
And so I said, "Look, do you want to come to Spain?" We only just met. This is day 3.
Yeah.
So you want to meet the parents? Like what the hell?
Romeo in, quite literally.
Yeah. So then she came over to Spain and spent a week there.
Wow.
And then we had a great time. Got on really well with my parents as well. And then I moved to Italy. She turned down an opportunity to go to New York. She was going to spend New York. She was in college at the time. Yeah. She was going to do a J1 3 months in New York with a cool friend of hers, Leanne. God knows why she chose to come to me, but she did. So she then joined me in Italy for 3 months, and I think that's when I was working crazy hours in Don Alfonso's. But she had friends coming to visit. I had this beautiful apartment, and La Dolce Vita, pretty much. You know what I mean? It was just that's where we really sort of that was it. Then you know.
Wow. And then but then you went to the Le Manoir together, or what? Was
so then I went back to Dublin really briefly. I had met a chef who was staging in Don Alfonso's that I got on well with. Loved the sound of Le Manoir. I got invited over to Le Manoir to do a stage, which is where you work for free. Yeah. Did 2 weeks there, had a ball, and then got offered a role there. So I was literally in Dublin for a couple of months and said, I'm going to Le Manoir. Yeah. And it was a bit like, what the fuck? I thought we were hanging out like a little bit. Yeah. So she finished college. So we had a bit of a long distance thing for a short while. Yeah. And then she came and joined me in Le Manoir and worked there then, you know. So,
wow, beautiful story. What are some of the big lessons you've took from Raymond and, Le Manoir?
I guess, I mean, cooking-wise, skill, do you know what I mean? About like sort of, well, hopefully not skill, that sounds a bit thing, but as in craft, I learned whole animal butchery, real whole fish butchery, how to recognize quality ingredients and, get the best ingredients you can get your hands on first, and then you can work with it. Do you know what I mean? My first role in that kitchen was goods received, where you're responsible for everything that comes in through the door, to all the butchery, the prep. In fact, I was just cooking with Lennis Hasties from Firedoor on Monday, and I was first. That was my first role, was being the butcher for him.
Wow.
He's a ball breaker.
Yeah.
You had him on recently, didn't you?
No, I haven't had him
I
on,
thought
no.
you did. I thought you did. So yeah. Anyway, so like that sort of real skills before you even put it in a pan. It's the basics,
Yeah.
How to make a sauce, how to make a stock,
Yeah.
how to prep a mushroom. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It was
Yeah.
back to basics. Even though I'd been cooking for probably 6-7 years at that time, it was like, whoa, start again.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? And that's on the cooking side of it anyway.
What did he teach you about the business side?
Organization, how to lead people.
Yeah,
How
keep going
to
to that more. Because I think, and I want to get onto this, is that you've got such a wide range of restaurants and people, like how you manage all this in your nut, mate. There's probably a lot going on. But like, what's he taught you about the art and craft, almost the craft of fucking leadership?
Well, I think it's communication.
Yeah.
It's how to talk to people, how to talk to different people in different ways. Everyone is a character as
Wow,
well.
okay, yeah.
So if you've got someone who appears to be, let's say, needs to kick up the arse and needs encouragement. That's the thing; they need encouragement, and you need to be kind of on them all the time. And sometimes some people kind of almost thrive a little bit on positive energy to kind of let's go, and you got to build them up. They don't respond well, maybe to sort of. Then there's other people that like are maybe a little bit shy, and then if you try to go, come on, they spin out. So you have to
Spin out. That's such a banging way of putting it.
So you know what I mean? So you've got to treat people a little bit differently in how you approach, a character who's kind of a little bit more timid but has great skill, and they can do it and they really care. And it's the ones that really care and that are timid that sometimes end up being the best in the world, because the best and also worse for themselves, because they care so much, they think about what they're doing so much that they're not really focusing on what they're doing at that particular time.
Yeah.
And they can, early stages, they're slow growers, let's call them.
Yeah.
So they mess up. I think I was a bit like that, where I was so passionate about things and I was so worried about messing up that maybe initially I was a little bit panicky. And then once you get over that period, then it's a lot more, you're a much more consistent chef. You get over that hump of insecurities, and then you're just constantly driving to be better and better and better.
Yes.
Whereas sometimes the really skilled ones who come in, they're shit hot, and things come to them much easier. They get complacent, they get a bit lazy, and they don't grow as well or as consistent as the guys that really care.
Yes. It's interesting. That's what Michel Roux Jr. said to me. Because I asked him, like, who was... I think one of the questions I asked him was, like, out of Gordon, Marcus, and Marco, who was, the least naturally talented?
Yeah.
Who was the one who had to put the extra hours in? You know what's absolutely mental, mate? London is literally the greatest foodie city in the world, with so many absolutely banging, delish restaurants opening on the reg. I absolutely love it. But look, let's get real. There's lots of times where tables are still sat empty, when your favourite spot is silently struggling. And look, every single table counts. Everyone needs solutions, and they need solutions very fast. And that, my friends, is where Eat Club comes in. Eat Club is a profitability tool created by hospitality insiders, including the absolute Don, Marco Pierre White. Eat Club gives top bars and restaurants control of a new stream of quality paying customers to fill those quiet times. No faff, no upfront costs, only upside. Look, if you're in hospitality and you want bums on seats when you need them most, please drop the founder Pan or the VP of the UK, Liz, both absolute legends. Drop them an email, fillmytables@eatclub.co.uk, fillmytables@eatclub.co.uk. That will get you straight through to them and they can help. Please, let's turn those empty tables into profit. Yeah, so I saw what we were talking about is your time at Le Manoir.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what are some of the lessons that Raymond taught you that you'd pass on to your own son.
Ooh, that's
How old?
He's 11.
He's 11. Ziggy, right?
Yeah, Ziggy. Yeah, it's what I do with my son. That's a tough one. Because it's interesting you say that, because RB is like, that's a business sort of, relationship, sort of respect. But then, when you're a young chef, like I remember when I first moved over to London, first time away from home, you do, especially if you've got a good relationship with your head chef, it is this kind of, now it might sound a bit creepy, but a bit sort of fatherly sort of.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? You're suddenly going, especially when you're very young. I was only just turned 18.
Wow.
When I moved to London. So like when you're going from like, literally, your mommy's still cooking you breakfast in the morning to suddenly going over and getting a flat in Kensal Green with your pals. And then you're in this sort of quite tough environment. I guess you latch on to sort of somebody a little bit senior than you. Do you know what I mean? And I think definitely RB would be up there with sort of someone that is very, like a father figure in work and stuff like that. And just as a friend, someone you could call on as well if I needed. So going back to your question, so I went off tangent there a little bit. Going back to your question, I think it's hard to say because like there's a huge work ethic. Do you know what I mean? Like RB is such a hard worker. He never stops, And I think something my parents taught me that I think also RB would pass down is like, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you're a gardener, whether you're a chimney sweep, whatever, I don't know. Whatever you're doing, you may as well do it to the best of your ability. And that's like sweeping the floor. Now, I sweep the floor, I clean the kitchen, I do the stoves, I do everything. Do you know what I mean? I take out the bins and it might fall on me. Or, do you know what I mean? And I think whatever you do, I think you've got to just approach it as the best ability as you can. And I think that's definitely something that I've learned from RB and a lot of my peers that I've worked with over the years, not just RB, but all of the chefs that I've been fortunate enough to work with who I respect mostly, is that they work hard, but they do everything to the best of their ability. They don't come in one day and it's just, don't really feel like working today, or it's a bit crap one day and then this. It's you've got to be consistent in what you're doing. Yeah. And I think that's it with Ziggy. Like I'm kind of like, if he's in school or if he's learning to play piano, he's playing sports, loves sports, and if he ever kind of goes, oh, didn't really feel like it or whatever, that really annoys me. I'm gonna say like, well then don't do it. If you're not going to do it, do it properly. Yes. And I think that's something that sort of sticks with me.
So, love that. In terms, so you could line up 100 chefs, 100 business operators and say, right, you're all going to put in 60-hour days, for example, right? 6 days a week. There's something else other than hard work, to get to that level. Because as you say, you line up 100 chefs, not everyone's going to be Raymond, Blanc, Le Mama. What would you say that 1% difference is with him? What's that little fucking thing that really made him go like that? And that's that you've learned from as well.
Well, this raw talent, this creativity, he's got he's passionate, he's articulate, he's he knows a lot about a lot of things. It's not just all about food. He could talk to you about art, he could talk to you about opera singers, he could talk to you about, do you know what I mean? Yeah. He's culturally fucking amazing. Yeah. So, and I think that also helps, if you're great. And unfortunately, and I'm guilty of it myself, I have been in the past, that sometimes if you just focus on cooking and that's all you ever do and it's all you ever talk about, I also think you can just be a bit fucking one-toned. Do you know what I mean? And I think it enhances you as a person to have other interests.
So what other stuff do you look around? Because also I think you get creative ideas from completely random fields. Yeah. You apply it to your own thing, right? Whether it's you could go and read a book about fucking space, for example, and then you go and create something and it pulls in. So what other stuff do you like outside of this?
Well, I love outdoors. I love being outdoors. Like my dad taught me how to sail. I love being anything near the sea. I'm inspired by. I love music. We spoke about an awful lot. Traveling.
What kind of music do you? Because I know you said the Beatles, but what kind of music do you like? What you
all
into?
Sorts. Really? Literally, it's all over the place. I love old school 90s hip hop. I love kind of Afrobeat. I love indie. Some of the newer bands out today, or I'm kind of interested in. I love because I'm not living in Ireland. I'm following a lot of new Irish acts who I find really exciting. Whereas traditionally I've been like, there's no good music anymore. I would always look to the past, and that's kind of a bit of an old man thing to say. But actually there are some great acts out there now. So I'm actually been a lot more into folk music these days and really loving seeing great platform or Irish traditional, folk music getting a great platform these days as well. I was in the Devonshire the other night, took Lennox to the Devonshire actually, and we were sitting there listening to some of the most amazing traditional music, and that's exciting. It's not old hat, you know what I mean?
Because that's what Osh and Ashley were saying to me. Is that Aaron Rowe guy? He's the Irish guy.
Yeah, he's from just up the road from me.
Yeah. I mean, he's fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like, I think what they're doing at the Devonshire, that back green room, is going to be...
It's inspiring.
In 20, 30 years' time, people are going to look back at that as like a part of something much bigger.
Yeah,
and it's kind of happening live,
Yeah, they've kind of made Soho fucking great again. Do you know what I mean? I've always loved Soho, don't get me wrong. But I think it's like anything, even Brixton, which I'm from Brixton, the change happens and then all the big brands go in there and then the sort of original coolness of a space gets a bit changed. And I think what Oisín and the gang are brought back to Soho was a little bit of real coolness and something that's individual, and there's actual, you talk about culture, I love the word culture because they brought down an amazing music culture into Soho.
Yeah.
So you're getting huge acts that go in there and want to party, but then there's also, it's a great platform for these younger artists who are mingling with this great artist.
That's why I think in 20 years' time, people will look back and be like, that was a fucking
That's
thing.
where that happened.
That's where that happened, yeah. So I was on the phone to Osh the other day, actually, and I said we were doing this today. And he said, in the most positive way, you've got like this beautiful maniac mind, like a firework display where you just think about all these different things. Like, I'd love to understand how you think, and I'm asking this selfishly, right? Because
what, he said it about me?
Yeah. He said like you've got this beautiful mind that's got like you've got 1,000 ideas all at once. And like with what I'm trying to do, and I ask these questions, obviously, is like I've got a lot of potential projects on my plate, right?
Yeah.
Like we want to do this food festival next year in Shoreditch. Like, I had a meeting about that. That'd be sick. But like I feel like there's two parts of this. There's like either focus and do one thing well, a bit like what the Devonshire are doing, or what you're doing, which is like do fucking loads of different things, but like do them all well. Like, how do you think? How does your brain think about this? Like,
I've got to be careful because I did, to be honest with you, I think I did do too many things at one time a few years ago, and I've actually pulled back a bit now. And
what were those too many things?
Well, I did some kind of consultancy work. I don't want to name any names, but I did some consultancy work where maybe wasn't quite me. Do you know what I mean? And then, and I felt then I was a little bit stretched. And then I get excited by projects. And I've changed. In the last sort of 3-4 years, I've changed. Where because I'm a creative and I get excited about things, I look at a space and I'll come up with a concept and an idea. And I guess I look at it from like, I'm putting on a show where we're doing this. And I'll go, oh my God, that chef would be really cool there. This type of cuisine would be really cool there. Yeah. And I'm sure people will come. And I just get excited by the project and developing something.
Yeah.
And I'm still excited by that. But I think that if I'm doing that again, I kind of want to be sure that I'm doing it, but it's there to help it get set up. But I can't then run it full time, right? Now, there's
interesting, yeah.
That's one side to it. The other side is that, like, I was actually cooking an incredible lunch. Well, that's modestly say that. I was in France and I was cooking I was afraid. I was nervously standing beside Claude, Bosi. We holiday together in the south of France a lot because we're, long story short, but our sons are the same age and wives are friends. We're great friends as well. And it coincides that we're all in France together at the same time. So we would generally cook together. And the first year we went out and I was cooking, this was kind of when I was in that period where I had loads of different things on the go, way more than I have now. And we just lost a dairy. And it was kind of just after COVID was
just
coming out.
Just launched or lost the dairy?
Just lost it. It was just when COVID was coming out of COVID. I basically was in loads of different things. And I think also that was a bit of a result of COVID because we were quiet. We weren't doing anything for sort of 2-3 years.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I wasn't doing anything for 2-3 years. I was having all of these conversations and coming up with all of these different ideas because my mind was going all over the place. So when we got out of COVID, all of a sudden all of these projects that had been waiting to happen all happened at the same time.
What were some of those projects?
Tell me what you want to say.
That's fine. Yeah.
And some of them were great. Okay, one of them which was fantastic was Birch that we did in Hertfordshire where we did a farm. We did multiple restaurants there. Yeah. And even that I should have just done that. Yeah. And we did Bottle and Rye at the same time, which is thankfully still running. And so all of a sudden I had about 7 or 8 projects all on at the same time because I would consider Birch to be 4 or 5 all in one, you know?
Yeah.
It was massive. And anyway, I was cooking this lunch and I was putting my heart and soul into it, and it was really like beautiful produce, and it was for about 15, 16 people, and Claude came in towards the end and was helping me kind of get it all together. And he said this in a beautiful way. He said, Robin, if I want to eat your food, where do I go? And I said, well, if you go to Brushwood here, if you go to Derby's, you get this. If you go to Sorella, you get this. If you go to Bottom Right, you get this. If you go to such and such, you get this. And he just said, slow down. Really, if I want to come and see you in your restaurant, where do I go? And I answered him the same question, or with the same answer. I said, if you go here, you go get that. If you go here, you go get that. And he said, but you and your food, where do I go? It was when you had the dairy, I would go there. And I would know that's Robin of the Dairy has launched X, Y, Z, but it's still always Robin of the Dairy. Mm. Right now, you're doing all of these different things. Where do I go if I want to see you? And it was a fucking lightning bulb moment.
Yeah.
To go, actually, hang on, he's dead right there. Like, I need to be sort of, Robin of, say, Derby's. And that's kind of, then it was just a thing that was like, okay, that's what I need to do. That's what I need to focus on. Yeah. So I ended up actually walking away from a couple of consultancy roles that I was doing, looking at what was working and what wasn't, and then pulled back a bit, and then looked at where I was needed most and where I was needed most, but also what was kind of really needed my attention, what was growing, and that's Derby's. Yeah. So now, and when I've made a really conscious decision, I'm full-time chef here. I'm a head chef here. Sure. As well as doing other projects. And now, if you ask me the same question, if Claude says, right, if you want to see me, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find me here. Wow.
Yeah, that's a good lightning bolt for me. It's like just to try and do focus, basically. Because I'm like you, I get excited by things. I'm like, oh, fuck, we could do this, we could do that. Set up a different, we're trying to produce other people's podcasts. I'm like, is that a distraction? It's just like, yeah. What's underrated lessons from Claude Bosi have you taken?
Underrated lessons. I mean, I'd say there's... Again, he's someone that's super inspiring, you know what I mean? To look at kind of like everything he does is with pure class. Yeah. And it's always food focused and at a really high level. Like, to be honest, I wouldn't have been surprised if Josephine, both of them got a star immediately. It's so fucking consistent. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's incredible bistros. I think they have bib gourmands, I'm sure they do. But they're just pure class. And Lucy's touch to the look and feel of the restaurant, all these little touches from the lemon soap in the bathrooms, I fucking love. Do you know what I mean? And I think, I don't know, I think Claude is a great way of setting things up that are super consistent. Do you know what I mean? It's like, he's got 2-star level cooking in both Brooklands and, in Bibendum. And I think that, if he does a brasserie, it's just as consistent. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And that consistency is really hard to do, but he's such a pro in what he does that it's not clinical is the wrong word, but it's so well executed that, you can go in any other day and it's like that souffle is the exact same. It's fucking perfect, you know?
Would you ever do like with the same one brand, i.e. like a bit like a Josephine's where you do like almost like a Sorella, X number of Sorellas? Has that ever come to you?
I've always thought of it and I certainly wouldn't turn it down. I think, in fact, and I don't really agree with people's sort of judgment on that. You know what I mean? I think that like if there's a really good quality driven brand that's got integrity, why not? Yeah. That there's a good few of them. Do you know what I mean? It's like some people say it's a sellout, and I think there's great examples of that and bad examples of it. I think a good example is you could say like Jolene, they've got 3-4 sites that's done with integrity, and I think it's I respect that an awful lot. I respect Josephine. I don't respect some of the bigger brands out there that's like serving absolute shit and it's just rolled out and it's terrible. Do you know what I mean? But there's a place for and I guess I can understand that like when you see high streets that are soulless and they just have the same brands, there's no identity there. Yeah. And it's losing a bit of its authenticity. I think that's a real shame. But I'd be quite honest about it. I've looked at and loved our brand Rye by the Water, which was our original bakery. Yeah. With the intention of doing something similar where we'd have a few of them, and I when I say a few, I think maybe 3 to 4 or 5 sites of. Yeah. And I developed the brand in thinking like that, where it could be like Rye by the Water was when it was in Brentford.
Yeah.
And I could imagine I had these dreams of like, oh, maybe it's in Clapham Common, it's Rye on the Common. Or,
Oh, wow. Yeah. That was sick. Yeah.
And actually, we did it with Bottle and Rye, and that was it wasn't publicised like that, but Bottle and Rye is a second kind of iteration of that.
Yeah.
But it's a wine bar. Do you know what I mean? And this is just me personally, but I've loved the fact of taking a brand that's linked, and it should be linked through quality. And I think it's the quality of our bread and our craft that links in the wine bar. It links in the coffee shop. It links in the big bakery. Do you know what I mean? And so they could be all a little bit different, but it's all under one brand.
Yeah, I like that because you got the brand sort of umbrella brand, but all these little different nuances per thing.
Yeah, and another person I hugely admire is Jason Arden, who's done that at a very different level, but at a very high level.
How so?
With Social Eating House and social, what's the other ones again? You know what I mean? But it's a social link that's linked them all through it. Do you know what I mean? And I thought that was quite clever. It was having a brand that, it's almost a kind of a tick of quality, and it's a link between them all.
Stretch.
But they're all very different. I thought that was amazing.
The one thing I want to talk about is it Paradise Garage?
Yeah.
That was in Bethnal Green. Because I think I've got mates, text me like the time we've got restaurants, be like, it's fucking hard right now. Like really, really difficult. I think that whole tax outlet has just gone out. And I think there's what I'd love to speak to you about is like the art of like closing a restaurant and how you navigate that. But then actually just one thing I respect you, Robin, is you can just bounce back and go again, right? Like
it's like if you get knocked off a horse, you have to go again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, there are.
What's the hardest bit about that?
Well, the hardest bit is closing a restaurant because it's like losing a sibling. When we closed the dairy, our lease was coming to an end. It was COVID. I mean, I'm not going to blame COVID completely because it was a natural disaster. It was like our lease was coming to an end. The building was in tatters. It was falling down, and the relationship between us and the landlord was also breaking down, and the rent was tripling. So there was all these things against us, and I did absolutely everything to try to save that business. I even had outside investors who were willing to buy the property off the landlord, and we just couldn't find a solution. I even still kept trying to save the business through getting another investor in to kind of help me with some of the debt and even pay the stupid rent that they were trying to charge me and to try to save it, because it was such an embedded part of us. In fact, so much so that when we used to drive past the dairy, when my son was only 4 or 5, he used to go, "That's Daddy's house."
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And, again, I talk about community and when you're it becomes part of your life and you meet through regulars through the business to become friends and family and blah, blah, blah. It's really hard closing a restaurant and it's part of you. So there's no easy way to do it. I think with Paradise Garage, it was especially hard because it worked for 2 years. It smashed all of our expectations financially and the response it got. But then it just started to dip. There was a lot of building going on in the area, but I also think that there was, we weren't the flavour of the month anymore, and that can happen. Do you know what I mean? We just, no matter what we did, the quality was there in my mind. The team were still as good as ever. The menu had evolved in a positive way. We tried to respond to what was going on in the area. We launched brunches. Do you know what I mean? We tried different things to kind of navigate the climate at the time.
Yeah.
But it just slowly the business was starting to kind of dip and dip and dip. And to be perfectly honest with that particular site, I looked around me and I saw other businesses just throwing money at the problem and rebranding and changing it, and it still wasn't working.
Yeah.
So we were there on a short period of time, and I turned around to our kind of business partners at the time, and I just said, like, we could throw money at this and we could start changing and adapting. But if you look at other people who have done this in this exact same area, it's not worked. Yeah. And I know for a fact that they're getting more and more in debt, in which case we could have a lot more people in, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So before it got out of hand, we made the decision to say, let's just sell, because at the moment we have a high value property because it was an expensive fit out. So we could actually get some money for the property at the time and walk away without causing too much damage. And that's what we did.
Yeah. No, it's just fascinating because a lot of people may shut a restaurant and not bounce back, you know,
Yeah.
but you always seem to bounce back and keep going. What's the art when you're at that pit of like darkness, as you say? It's almost like severing a part of your soul, right? Like, how do you? Because people listening to this be like, I'm in that situation. Like, what's the art of just getting back up?
Well, you mentioned it's like, you know, losing a restaurant is, and people might get upset about with me saying this, but it's a bit like losing a friend or a sibling or a fucking something. It's a part of your life. You put everything into it.
Yeah.
And when it goes, it's a part of you that dies. So the only way to get to kind of cure it from my personal experience was to cook. And it was to get out there and you know, you could say, but the thing is, I'm really scared about saying that, because a lot of people throw themselves into work to kind of get over some of the problems that they have, and they become workaholics. So there's a fine line, there's a balance there, you know. But for me personally, I found that if I just got back on the horse and focused on the positive things in my life, whether that's there's another new project that's come up, and goes, you know what, fuck it, there's nothing we can do about that landlord in that situation and the position we were in. But look at what's good in life. Look at my family. Look at my friends. Look at this other opportunity that's arisen. I'm going to focus on all of those positive things and park that, because there's nothing I can do about that anymore.
Yeah.
And you just have to fucking put it behind you.
Yeah.
And it's really easier said than done, because I said it's like, I can't even walk past the dairy anymore.
Really?
Do you know what I mean? I'll go another route, you know?
Yeah.
So it's
would you ever bring it back under a different site or a different guise?
Very hard to do, because it is what it is at a time and place, and it was cool because it was quirky and it was small and it was narrow and it was loud, and it was also the people that were working there at the time.
Yeah.
You know, I there's a lot of elements in of the dairy that will always be with me, through dishes, through what I learned from that initial site, from learning how to bake bread just for the restaurant, then we launch a bakery. Do you know what I mean? So there's elements of it that I've taken with me. Whether and I you know, I've done a few nights where I said I'm cooking a menu from the dairy, and they sell out, and it's like things like
so
that.
You've still got that brand. Like people are still obsessed with that.
Yeah, they are, and I think that's great, and it's a real compliment. But I honestly think unless the site was absolutely perfect and it was quite similar, and I almost feel like it needs to be in Clapham in the old town as well for me to do it. That's why it's hard. And again, it's a bit like sometimes you just gotta go, that was brilliant, but now I'm focusing on this. You know what I mean? So,
tell me about the Bloodshot Supper Club. That I think it's such a sick name. Firstly, like, what was the genesis of that? Why did you do that?
Well, I did it because, again, it was at a period in the dairy where things were great, but, you know, again, if you sit on your hands and you're going to go, well, aren't we great? Then what are we going to do? And we were very fortunate. One of the guys I really respect in the business, well, two actually, but at the time, Nuno Mendes, I was a real sort of like fan, you know, and he came into the restaurant with Patrick Powell, who was his head chef at the time. Now become a really good friend. Again, another guy I admire. They came in for lunch. I sat down with them afterwards, and we were just talking about the business in general. And we were saying, you know, apart from like cool places like Chinatown, some incredible, really good kebab places out there, where do you go for late night food? Do you know what I mean? There's great late night brasseries in Paris. There's cool spots in New York, which are not just Chinatowns and blah, blah, blah. There's a much more of a diverse scene where you can go and eat some great food. And it was straight after that kind of chat, I knew I was sitting in a space where we didn't have any neighbours above us or around us. You can get 12 temporary events notices a year, so that's one a month, where you can do an all-night party. And I said, I'm going to fucking own this.
Sick.
And my mind just started going and saying, right, I'm going to... Then the idea evolved, and I kind of... A lot of great friends in the business, and friends of, you know, chefs that are working for, say, 2-3-star chefs who were the head chefs or junior or senior sous or whatever. And you know those guys are kind of biting at the bit, and they don't get that much amount of creative freedom in the kitchens, but they're super skilled. So I thought, right, I could create a great platform for those guys who are the next biggest thing, that they could come in and flex.
Yeah.
You know, at night in the dairy.
Yeah.
And it's going to be communal dining. So again, I wanted to encourage that front of house and back of house element. So at the time, you could only book the tickets through me personally on Twitter, and I could only allow one person to buy 2 tickets.
Yep.
So you wouldn't get just a staff party type vibe. And then I put all communal seating. And the idea behind it was also that it was for industry only, so that I felt it was a great opportunity for people to come into a restaurant space after work like normal punters do on a Saturday night. So they come in, they have their drink, and then they have an incredible dining experience, and then they will go on to have this experience, you know. Stop for 1 second.
Yeah.
Otto, do you need me? Otto, do you need me? You sure? Cool. So it was all these different layers, but it was aimed at industry. And then what happened was you'd arrive at 12 o'clock at night. I remember I had Ian Skamuska, who was head chef for Claude at the time when he had Hibiscus in Mayfair. And he did the most crazy off-the-wall menu, like just so many different elements and courses. And
What sort of stuff was on the menu?
Well, he just did this like sort of lobster 3 ways. It was like a little bow, and then you got this kind of bisque that came down, and it was just like the most immaculate ingredients, but like served in all these different ways. And it was just, everything was an experiential mouthfuck. Do you know what I mean? It was just off the charts. One of the first ones we did actually was Dean Parker, who I mentioned was my kind of head chef. He was he was working in the Manor at the time, and he did one of his first courses was like a red mullet, like with a red mullet dashi made from like all the bones of the fish. But what he did was he served there were some flowers on the table with this kind of really intense flavored dashi, and wild herbs from our rooftop garden that were all decorated on the table. So first course, we came out, cooked the red mullet, just scorched it at the table, seasoned it up a little bit, dressed it on the plate, and then we got a pair of scissors and snipped the little bouquet over the dish.
Oh, wow.
And then poured the dashi at the table.
Wow.
From the thing. So it was experiential. Do you know what I mean? It was like really theatrical.
Yeah.
Then we had a dish called Reservoir Hogs.
Sick.
Where Arvine, who was DJing, he sticks on the theme tune from Reservoir Hogs. We send out like these caramelized crispy pig heads that were like cooked in Chinese 5-spice sort of style seasoning, like a broth.
Yeah.
Dressed in a white shirt and a black
as in the
tie.
film, the Reservoir
As in the
Dogs.
film.
That's unreal.
We played the theme tune. All the chefs were splattered in blood, like fake blood.
Yeah.
And then dropped all this like caramelized pig head on the table, big bowl of kimchi, rice, and surgical gloves just to get in touch. And the place just went wild.
It's mad. You know, like what I asked you at the beginning about like your parents' theatrical stuff and applying that to food and music. But that is the fucking epicenter, or like the perfect example of that.
Yeah, it was rock and roll, dude. It was like, and then 2-3 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. Traditionally was when the last course was being like turned out. So it was.
So what time would this start then?
So it starts at midnight.
Yeah.
So it was the idea was you finish work.
Yeah.
You come in, you get to the dairy at 12 o'clock, have a drink, and then you start your evening then. And then as the night evolves, the music would tempo go up, the volume would go up, and then I'd come out and fucking rip away all the furniture and get everybody off their seats.
Yeah.
And then it's a session until 7 in the morning.
Fucking sick.
We did
mate.
one a month for a year.
Yeah.
And then slowed down a little bit.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. That's hilarious. The one thing I wanted to ask you about is like your creativity. So, as I said, like Osh said, you've got this beautiful firework mind. Like, where does your creativity come from? Like, do you think it's like do you think creativity is like this cosmic thing that comes to you? Or do you think it's something you like we talked about like the subconscious, like, I don't know, I study creativity a lot, and I think it's kind of, I don't know, I'd just love to know what you think of where it comes from. Like, where do you get the idea for Reservoir fucking Hogs? Do you know what I mean?
Well, that was a collaborative one. I think maybe the idea for it's always inspired by other people, I think, you know.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has a creative spark in them, some more than others. And I think everybody's a little bit different. I think we're all wired up differently, you know.
Yeah.
Some people are really good at admin and, you know, love to everything all in a clean line and needs to be all super organized. I like things organized, but also I'm chaotic. Do you know what I mean? I think I have I'm not having diagnosed for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if I have ADHD and loads of other shit. But I think that we're all wired a little bit differently, and I think that drives me. And I think creativity is always really good for the soul. And, I'm always at my happiest when we're creating dishes or we've come up with a really good idea and it works. And I think that makes me happy. Do you know what I mean? And I find that if I'm just doing the same thing all the time, and I'm not creative and I'm not doing things, and my kind of well-being is not as good as it should be, you know?
Yes.
So it just makes me happier to be creative and do things. So.
Yeah, well, I feel like we've all got this like kind of like force in our head, and I feel like if you're creative, it kind of just, it's very cathartic. It just sort of flushes stuff out. Do you know what I mean? It has that ability to...
But anybody can do it, and it can be like... I don't know, like the classic thing everyone says is an accountant creative. Well, they certainly can be. You know? But like, you know, it's like, I think anyone can be, and it's just there's different levels of it and there's different ways of doing it. And I think everyone should be encouraged to do it because it really is good for the soul.
I want to talk a few more things and we'll begin to wrap this up, mate. I'm absolutely loving this. But I read somewhere that you went through a really harsh period of like bullying in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that period, how that's... What are the lessons you've taken from that you apply now that you're no longer a chef but restaurateur?
Well, you know, there's a difference between high octane, you know when the tempo goes up in the kitchen, there's a little bit of shouting and stuff like that. You know, I personally like I think when in the height of the service, I kind of like a high energy. Do you know what I mean? I think more and more we've got to all learn to be able to be like calmer and to be able to get the job done without that sort of energy. Do you know what I mean? But I think there's a difference between high energy and shouting. I've been in kitchens, like I went straight from, you know, Dublin and to London. And when I spoke initially, I wrote an article about this years ago about a really horrific time I had in the very first kitchen I worked in. And a lot of people thought it was the Oak Room under Market Pierre White because they just associated that time and that era of cooking, and it really wasn't. I was actually really nurtured there. But there was shouting in the kitchen. There was name calling. There was like cunt of the day and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I didn't personally, I find it was a lot of pressure, but the pressure was to be better. And it was, you know, what I find, what was bad was the bullying that I experienced.
This was at a separate place.
A separate restaurant.
So high octane's good. High intensity's good.
Look, I think again, even since that time, I think it's changed. I think now we've got to all learn how to pressurize that, how that environment should be a little bit calmer. Do you know what I mean? I'm saying that's how I felt that was okay back then.
Yeah.
Now it fucking isn't.
Yeah.
You know, but there's a difference between high pressure and actual bullying.
Yeah.
And what I witnessed in the first restaurant I was in with bullying was where when it was quieter, it was worse. It was like I got badly burnt in the face, and I was off for a couple of weeks. When I came back, I had all these marks all over my face, and there was these beautiful waitresses that were coming up to me and genuinely concerned. And by the way, I was only 17 at the time. I looked about 14.
Right.
Okay, I've always looked younger.
Yeah.
It wasn't great then. It's better now.
You've aged well, mate.
But
like a fine wine.
But yeah, back then I looked really young. So when these girls are coming up to me and they're going, "Geez, Robin, are you okay?" And because they're genuinely concerned. And the head chef, the fucking head chef, shouts out in front of everybody, "Get away from him. Can't you see? Look at him. Look at the lesions on his face. He's got fucking AIDS."
Honestly.
That is bullying.
Yeah.
That's horrific. Do you know what I mean? And then my first day back after I got badly burnt, I was a geek. I was writing down everything. I was, you know, really trying hard to learn as much as I could. So I wasn't trained. It's my first kitchen I ever worked in, so I wasn't trained how to write a recipe. So it was probably all over the place and a bit silly. When I arrived back to my section on the first day of my job, the senior chefs, 4 of them, were all around my station reading my book and fucking going through it and laughing. And then one of them turns around and went, "Have you got the recipe in there for the duck, you fucking cunt?" And the duck was what burnt my face.
Oh my God.
So that's bullying. Do you know what I mean? And I don't get me wrong. I like pressure. I like when people are kind of.
So how do
someone
you?
says, "Come on, fucking, let's go." Whatever.
Yeah. How do you, as a young kid, like you've got this dream? So I think I read somewhere, you'd tried a few different things. Then as soon as you found cooking, becoming a chef, that was your like goal. A lot of people in that situation would melt.
Yeah. And
what was it like when you go home that night and you look in the mirror and you've got these dickheads? Yeah. Right. Like, what do you say? What does Robin Gill say to himself?
I don't know. Do you know what I think I was trying to turn it into humor. I think it was a bit like, they say the greatest comedians are the saddest. And I think that a lot of these guys have all had trauma. I didn't realize at the time I was going through trauma. And the only way I was dealing with it was like I would meet my mates. I'd meet my mates and I would be like, I would kind of try to turn it into a bit of a joke, and I would turn these stories into sort of like gags almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was how we dealt with it at the time. That's not right, by the way. Nobody should have gone through that. I should have walked day one.
Yeah.
And I should have reported them, and I didn't. So what I did was wrong. I stayed there, and this is all really bravado. Am I saying it right? Bravado, fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
But it was the fear of failure, of doing something wrong again. Because I basically, I'd walked out of school, I'd walked out of my music lessons, I'd let my father down so many different times that I didn't want to let him down again. I didn't want to let my parents down. And I suddenly found something that I loved. Side to that, I loved the atmosphere. There were some beautiful people in that kitchen. And that I had a good relationship with. There's some beautiful waiters and waitresses that were on the floor that I loved. And I loved the atmosphere of the kitchen. I loved the learning about the food. I was learning. And that was really rewarding. And I loved cooking. But the bullying I should never have put up with.
Yeah.
The only reason I did is because I didn't want to upset. I didn't want to walk away from another thing.
Yeah.
So I was wrong to do that. I should have walked away. And the only time I walked away was when I felt that I was actually able to do my job properly. So I took it for a good 6 months.
Yeah.
And it was only after the 6 months when I got the section down, I knew I was running my section really well. I had another job lined up, but I wanted to prove, I wanted to last, do my 6 months, and then walk away. And that's not advice. That's just what I did.
What would you have done differently, or like if anyone's in that?
If anybody, I wouldn't actually change anything personally.
Yeah.
But if somebody else was going through what I went through, I would tell them to get the fuck out of that kitchen immediately. There are so many amazing kitchens out there where that is unnecessary. It's not necessary. And tell me where they are, because I'll wait for those cunts afterwards and I'll kill them myself.
I love that. On the other side of that, the pressure.
Yeah.
I think there's a Danny Mayer thing, which is slow, gentle pressure, which I love. Which is kind of that like, what's the art of that? Of like not bullying like a cunt, but like just that, which you see, you like that tempo, because I think there's sometimes there's got to be a sort of certain energy. Do you know what I mean? I think energy is really important.
Like it's hard to, I mean, I just try to sort of briefings. You know what I mean? A briefing is a really important thing, and I think that like when you're like pre-service lunch, and it's the quiet times that you really got to watch out for. When you've got a busy restaurant, everyone's geared up and they're ready for a big service, and that's when everyone performs. It's when it's a bit quieter. Tube strikes. Thanks very much, by the way. or something that happens, and then you're a little bit slower. That's where I find I've got to get the team already, and it's like.
So what did you say to them?
I just say, guys, it's going to be quiet. This is an opportunity, and I always remind them this is when we drop the ball. But here's an opportunity. Let's make sure the restaurant is beautiful. Let's do a little bit of like spot checking of everything. Make sure your sections are absolutely set. Here's an opportunity for us when we don't often get as much time as we want on each table to engage with a guest. Let's do it tonight. Let's kind of, right, what have we got in the fridge? Let's get those mushrooms out. I want to put on a quick special, and we're going to do this now.
Yes.
Or, do you know what I mean? And then it's like, come on, are you ready? Are you ready? Because you can see the energy in the kitchen, or you can see the energy on the floor. The shoulders are down, and everyone's moping around. They haven't cleaned the section. They're not ready for service. Let's get the floor done. Let's do this. And it's body language. It's kind of, come on, let's go.
It's almost like the chaos actually makes. Ironically, the chaos equals clarity, because you're moving. It's like it adds a kind of. It's when you're quiet is when it's an issue. That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's me. Again, it's me personally. I find that I feel like if everyone is a bit like, I don't know, you can just look around, you can feel an energy, and if it's like that, I just get really anxious, and I start cleaning and going, come on, what's going on? Yeah.
You said somewhere that you still speak to your old man or ask him questions. Like, what's some of those questions that help you navigate the world now?
Oh my God, it's all sorts of things. Like, I guess, big, when there's a big move, it's a big life decisions. You know what I mean? If it's like, oh, I'm thinking about doing this, or should I do this, and to be honest with you, now it's more family related. To be honest, like it's like I'm lucky to have a great relationship with my son, and maybe I might even be speaking to my dad less, but also trying to kind of have the same relationship I had with my dad, with my son.
Sure.
I was lucky that I met my dad much later in his career, so he'd slowed down a lot. So I was lucky enough to spend a lot more time with him at that time of his life. I think he was 50 or something when he had me.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Okay,
so he's kind of coming to sort of, not the end of his career, but when he would had more time. He wasn't traveling as much and all that kind of stuff, So I guess I'm kind of trying to emulate that and have Ziggy as much a part of the business. And one thing I love about what my parents did when I was younger was, yes, I had babysitters and blah, blah, blah. They were very busy, but they took me with them everywhere. It wasn't just like brought up by a nanny or whatever. I was involved in their adult life, and Ziggy's very much a part of our life. He'll be here late night, be restaurant openings. He'll come to all sorts of things with us. And
what are some of the things you think he'll learn from being in this restaurant environment that other kids wouldn't get? Do you think?
Well, you know what? He's smart. Like he's savvy with how he can speak to people. He'll speak to an adult.
Wow.
Like
cool, yeah.
really sort of like people are surprised. They're like, "How old are you?" Do you know what I mean?
Sick. Yeah,
and he's really funny. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's funny enough. I don't know who he gets it from, but he's he's extremely compassionate as well. Like he's always getting these little awards in school for being like compassionate. If he looks around, if he sees someone struggling, he'll never, like he won't stand for any bullying. If he sees someone getting a bit of stick, he'll stand up for the other kid. Do you know what I mean? And make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Or someone on a football pitch or whatever, he'll look after them kind of thing.
Wow.
So, and I don't know, but I think he sees my hard work as well, and I think hopefully he takes that on. Like he cooked with me. We had a Christmas here one year, and I couldn't believe like how intuitive he was in the kitchen with me. He didn't just, I thought he would just want to be doing all the cool stuff. Like, give me the knife, I want to chop that. Give me the fucking steak, I want to put that on the fire. He was like, are you finished with that? He just became sort of natural, like commie. And like, I'll clean that up and just doing stuff and getting the dishwasher going and things.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's brilliant because he was humble. He just was looking around seeing, he had a real eye for what needed to be done, not what he wanted to do.
There's so much in that. In terms of, so your wife, she does what's her role in this? Because she was front of house at Le Manor, right?
She was front of house, she was host, she was done waitressing for years.
What's her essence in your restaurant?
She's very much a people person. She's kind of much more back of house now. Since we had Ziggy and it was full on, she took a big step back from services. Yeah. But she's a major support to me as well, and then, like, cause we're quite events led as well. So she's still involved in the hosting. When we have big events on, she'll be here, make sure all of our guests are kind of looked after. She helps me a lot on the HR side of things, and also just being around the restaurant. She may not be on the floor, but she'll kind of go, look, we need to do something about the bar. We need to get uniforms in. We need to do this, and do you know what I mean? It just has that owner restaurant.
Yeah. What she taught you about like good service though, because we were talking about that dance or the pit as you put it back to the theatre, and the dancers. Like,
she's the opposite to me in many ways, and she's calm. Do you know what I mean? So she has an amazing way of like if a guest is freaking out, like that's why I think I could be okay for in a house, and I'm good at say talking to people, but I'm not so good if someone's being angry to me. If you've got a difficult guest, if someone's angry to me, I'll have to walk away.
Have you ever been like, do you ever get combative towards that, or have you?
I would,
yeah.
And that's what I mean. Where she's the complete opposite. She can just turn it really calmly. She can take it and then turn it, and 2 minutes later, this guest is really happy again.
Any examples of that specifically?
Well, if someone comes in and they're freaking out and they haven't got their glass right, she has just had this like it's her body language. It's how she talks. She's really calming, and then she'll twist it in a way. She can almost go like someone's like giving out like my champagne's warm or whatever, I don't know, and they're having an absolute go. They could be right about what they're saying, but it's how they're saying it, and she'll go, oh my God, your champagne's warm. well, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to slit someone's throat, or you know what I mean?
Wow,
and just
mate,
sort
that's
of,
so.
but just turn it,
like
as
almost
in,
like playing it back to the guest.
as in, like, you know what I mean?
I
Like,
know, but that's
it's a kind of that's a bad example. It's not probably what you said, but she will say something like, "That's possibly the worst thing that could have ever happened to anybody right now."
Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
I will give me those glasses. I'll sort that right now.
yes.
And they'll kind of like she's almost taking the piss back out of them.
That's
Without them realising
genius.
it.
That's genius.
And then take the glass, and then we'll get it back on track. And then suddenly that prick is now calmed down.
Yes.
Which is a skill.
yeah.
You know, whereas I'd go, okay, sir, hold your horses. Don't speak to me like that. Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas she'll just be able to go, right, okay, let's turn this, you know?
So I read like the Scandi. You spend a lot. Do you, like the Scandi-Irish link, like those two cultures? I think they're like. Well, I've got a mate who actually is now dating a girl from Stockholm, and like they've got a really good sense of humour. Like, what would you say those when you apply those two cultures together? Like, how are they similar and different? Because I know that's impacted.
Is it
your food.
Vikings? Are we all Vikings? I don't know. I don't know. I think a lot of it is. I don't know. Sometimes I think if you're, I'm part of a relatively very small country, small town as well. Like I'm from the city, but I'm from the suburbs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think in the bitter cold winters and all this kind of stuff, and I think sometimes there's bitter cold winters, there's nice warm pubs, and there's music culture, and there's like, I think sometimes there's a bit of weird sense of humour, I think, in smaller towns and smaller cold climates, and I think then there's a bit of an association there, I think, with personalities and humour and friendships build very quickly like that, I think.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we've got all very similar produce as well, and there's colder climates and trying to how to make, you know, we've all learnt a lot from Renee and all those, you know, Nordic countries and how to make, you know, our ingredients sexy in the winter. Do you know what I mean? And I think...
Well, there's also there's a massive amount of ambition as well, like I think. Because like in Dublin's like one of the biggest tech hubs. Like I've got some of my mates live in, they now live in like Connemara, like right in the fucking west. But they used to live in Dublin. But then one of the guys who was on the pod the other day, like in Stockholm, you've got like Spotify, iZettle, like all these big tech firms are built in Stockholm. So
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. Until I did this podcast with this guy, it's like Skype, all this shit was built in Stockholm. And it's like, there's this, I don't know, this weird sort of ambition. Couple more things, mate. So what, like South London, what's some of your favourite restaurants?
Ooh, South London. Peckham, there's so many great gems in Peckham. I love Canton Arms.
Yep.
One of my go-to places for drink and food. The food is off the charts. I love the guys help me out here. It's not Larry's from Peckham. We're in Brixton. Have moved to Peckham.
Not.
Shit. They put me on the fucking spot here. Naughty Piglets. Absolutely love Naughty Piglets. Where else? Camberwell Arms. Tio's Pizza, I love.
Yep.
As well. Berbere Pizza in Clapham is also awesome. Where else is good? Trying to think now. In Brixton, good few places in Brixton as well. Yeah, that's it that I can think of.
What about any in like Clapham way?
Clapham. I'm loving the fact that Crispin have moved in to Studio Voltaire.
Yep.
Very, very good. Love the coffee place, 8 Lane Coffee, just on the Common. Love Trude's, the little grocery store there as well.
Yeah.
Is fantastic. Again, love a good Honest Burger. I know they're big, but they're still great.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah.
Still great.
Final question, mate. What's one truth you believe that most chefs would disagree with you on?
Ooh. No chefs would disagree with me on. No, that's a real tough one because I keep on thinking of these things like less is more, but a lot of people would say that. Ingredients is king. A lot of people would say that. I'll tell you what one is. We're only fucking chefs. Thing is, I have this thing that I take it fine, but I just think like, again, reference to music, we're just cooks at the end of the day. A lot of chefs take themselves so fucking seriously. You know what I mean? We're tradesmen. And like, I think that we're put on these pedestals. I actually would love to see more maitre d's, more front of house getting more recognition. Like the recognition that Oisín is getting for his front of house skills. He's like the personality alongside, obviously Ashley and stuff. But I do think that at the end of the day, we're just cooks. We're just cooking food.
Yeah. I love that. I love when you said cooks, we're just tradesmen.
Yeah.
Mate, that's been an absolute joy. Thank you so
Cheers,
much.
man.
That was sick.